Guys, thanks for joining us again for the rest round. Butch, Hiles, Garry Hashman here. We got a lot to catch up on, so first, we'll just go ahead and get right into the catch up. Butch, how you been, man?
Well, good. So yeah, for people that don't know too, I'll just, since we're actually asking how I've been, let's just talk about what's been going on with the eye problem, because a lot of people want to know. And anyway, so give a kind of a quick story breakdown. I can't really see right now, so I guess my vision on my right eye is 20/60, which is awful, right? And I haven't been able to train because they're trying to get some cells to grow back on my eye, which sounds weird, right? But so that means I can't take any contact to the face right now. So anyway, so that, and nobody knows what happened. It was like Saturday night. My eye was burning. Nothing big. I wear contacts. I just told my wife, it's like, hey man, my eye is burning. I don't know what. Just kind of ignored it. Later that night, it was hurting real bad, so I took my contacts out. Woke up the next morning, I couldn't see. So no vision, completely blind. And then I've been going to the doctor pretty much every other day since then, and we've got my vision back to where it's 20/60 on that side. So anyway, they don't know exactly. It could have been from former trauma. It could be from wearing contacts. It could be a number of things. But basically what happened is my eye got no oxygen. All the cells on my eye died. So they're currently growing back. Shouldn't be a big deal. I think they're thinking it should be fine, right? It's getting better every day. So that is good news. I don't have to wear an eye patch anymore, although that was cool. I always said girls like black eyes. I figure they like an eye patch more, but probably not, right? But yeah, it was funny. But I do appreciate everybody that reached out, and I will tell you, it is pretty nice to know also the position that you and I are in, and when people from the UFC are reaching out to me, and people from Bellator, and people that I know are somewhat my friends, and I consider them a friend, but when they actually do check out or check in and make sure that I'm doing okay, it means a lot to me. So, and not just famous people, it just mean it's just cool to know that people care. So anyway, yeah, it's good. And even with that, it's Father's Day. So did you have a good Father's Day? By the way?
Uh, I did. I'm kind of people who know my in my inner circle know that I'm moving to North Carolina, and we talked about it on here before. But I'm moving to North Carolina. My wife and kids are already down there, and I am still in the house up here in Ohio. And I'm bouncing back and forth, but I was able to go down this past weekend, spend Father's Day down there. A new house, new grill, so I got to grill. Uh, have the offset smoker, and I sit outside in the sun all day with my shirt off. Burned my back and shoulders pretty well, but other than that, it was a great time. My son stayed with me last week uh, up here in Ohio, and so it was good to have him back at jujitsu. And he's kind of like he's sort of my helper, is uh, my jujitsu dummy for the kids class. So it's always good to have him in there. And he was, I think he wanted to see all his friends and stuff too. But it was a good Father's Day, and I got no complaints. I'm blessed beyond what I should be. So it was a
So
good time.
what is it like? Are you a self-sufficient man, meaning, without your wife and your kids and everything, are you able to cook yourself a good meal and take care of yourself like a normal human? How does that work for
Absolutely,
you?
absolutely not. But
Yeah, it's rough, I
I,
know.
I would say if there wasn't so much other stuff going on, I'd probably be okay at it. But
Yeah,
when I get done at jujitsu, it's probably 8:30, going on 9 before I get home, and so it's whatever hot pocket lean
yeah,
cuisine I can throw in the microwave and throw that back. That way I can go to sleep. Now I will say this: with nobody being at the house and it being so quiet here, I fall asleep way earlier. Like
yeah,
there's nothing I don't really watch TV, and I like all the lights off. Like this is the first time the living room light has been on in the house since everybody left. And
yeah.
normally I'm in the man cave, or in the bed laying down. So I found you don't have that background noise going on. The kids aren't arguing, and so it's a lot of sleep.
It's a lot to get used to. What do you think? I don't know how well you're eating. I'm judging you by how I judge myself, and I know that the only things I can cook are pretty much like you said, hot pockets, chicken nuggets, things that are basically cooked already. I just got to warm them up, right? So not the healthiest thing, but I'm thinking if I was in your position and doing everything now, I'd probably end up having to do one of those like pre-made meals and have somebody have them. It's sad because I know that I sound like I'm helpless in it, and really I am. I would get better if I had to, but I have a great wife, as do you, and we're men that are lazy in a weird way. We're lazy with that, not lazy with other stuff, but yeah. So I guess the only way, I mean, it's tough. So you're gonna have to grocery shop and all kinds of stuff, right? Like,
Yeah,
wow.
well, that was the first stop that I had to make on the way home from North Carolina. So I came back Sunday night, and I stopped in Athens on the way back to Ohio, or back to Gloucester, where I'm at. And on the way in, I had to stop at Walmart, Kroger, and pick up the stuff that I needed, all my snacky stuff. So I was able to get some like fruit trail mix and stuff like that.
Crazy, huh?
But yeah, I will say this: I'm not eating nearly as much stuff, and I think I've lost a few pounds just because I'm like, I don't really want to get up and do it.
Yeah.
So
They-
I'm losing weight because I'm too lazy to go to the microwave.
Yeah. No, well, that's interesting too, because I can see that's happened to me before. When my family's gone, you can go two directions. You can snack like crazy, right? But if you don't have the stuff to snack on, then you're probably not going to. And that's usually what I do. Like I try to make sure the house is empty, and then I get to a point where I am starved, and I try to make the healthier decisions, right? Like, here's the thing: you can still go to a Walmart or something like that and get like a rotisserie chicken, or you can kind of cheat, right? You can have stuff that's kind of pre-made for you. It's still kind of healthy. But it's different lifestyle, man. It's funny because us big, strong men shouldn't be this weak when we're alone. And it's not actually weak. It's just a different lifestyle. You have to get used to, the different things that are going on. So I'm sure it's a lack of a better term, like a learning process in a way, right? I mean,
Well, I mean, think about it. We've been domesticated,
yes, exactly.
right? Like, I mean, uh, and not to think too much upon it, but like being hunter gatherers, like my job is to go out and smash things and drag it home, and not really prepare it. Now, smashing things and dragging it home now is going to work for 40 hours, or me going to jujitsu for 25, 30 hours a week, and doing that. So that's the hunter in me, and gatherer in me. And I've been lucky enough, even though my wife is also a hunter gatherer, she's also the one who's doing all the stuff at home. There's truth to even though women have picked up more work, they're still doing all the house stuff as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm guilty of, and I know that now, obviously, how much my wife took care of me and all the stuff I didn't have to do. I don't have to cook my own food. I don't have to wash most of my clothes. I don't have to. I'm taken care of. And so the domestication of me has made me a little bit soft and not able to do stuff. Not that I can't, like you said, not that you can't do it on your own, but you just get used to not doing it, and
Yeah.
maybe taking for granted a little bit how much is done for you.
Well, yeah, now it's going to be a whole lifestyle switch, right? Like now you got to figure out, all right, I'm getting off work. I got this, I've got training. When am I going to cook my food, right? Like, or whatever it is. Because obviously if we wait till after training, that's when you start making bad decisions because you're too tired, right? So that it's going to be a point of, okay, I need to get this done before, at least have it ready, that maybe cook the day before you couldn't heat up. Decisions that we've never had to make before. And it's not to gloss over. It actually is a big deal, man. It's, because we don't want to be big fat losers either. So we gotta work that out. But that's interesting, man. So you got some stuff to figure out here over the next couple months, right? And it'll get better and better, I'm sure. But on that, I don't have that. Obviously, we had a good Father's Day here. Meaning we had some people from the gym over and their kids. Had a little party in the backyard, a little cookout. Actually, we didn't really cook out. We actually ordered food from Chick-fil-A. But anyway, it was cool. And then the following day on a Sunday, we did that. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but a little kayaking tour in Kentucky, which I think they've done a good job marketing. Everybody's pretty much seen it on Facebook, even if you don't know what it's called. Like I barely know what it's called, but it's kind of like the Crystal Lake Under the Gorge tour. But if you look it up, it's next to some kind of natural bridge in Kentucky, and I don't remember the exact city, but there's a ton of stuff to do there. I wish I actually knew that there was so much stuff to do there, because we had drove down just to do the kayaking, And I will be honest, it was fun, but like, you know, like if you drive, I think we drove 3 hours there, 3 hours back for a 1 hour kayaking thing. That's kind of goofy. So I would have rather have done more stuff. So was the kayaking cool? Yeah, it was great. What they do is they put you in a glass bottom boat, so it's all clear. And I had one of my sons with me, and one of my sons had his own boat, the 14-year-old, and then my wife had another one. But they have fish in there, so it's a giant cave, and you go. It's about an hour. I think it's 5 miles. You kind of paddle, but it's not hard. And then they have a brown trout in there, I believe, a rainbow trout. So they'll throw food at them and they'll swim under the boat. And it's just kind of cool. It's just something different, right? And you have headlamps, and it was cold in there. It's just something cool to do. But if that's the only thing you're doing, there's a natural land bridge, which I guess is cool to look at, and you could take a sky lift around. We didn't do any of that stuff because we didn't know. And my kids are, 3 hours is pretty rough. 2 young ones, they were complaining and when are we going to be there kind of stuff, but like, it's worth it, man. It's the time that you get with your kids is immeasurable, right? Like, they grow up too fast. I know everybody says that, but I do know. And that's why for people that don't know, when you have multiple kids and they think that they get treated differently, they do kind of, and it's not on purpose. It doesn't mean that you like one better than the other. It's just like you learn, right? So the first one, we're hurried up and you want them to grow up. And then also you in a weird way, lack of a better term, you don't want them to be stupid, because everybody's like, well, my kid talked at 8 months and my kid walked at this. So it's almost like a competition, right? You're like, well, mine did this. And then you also do like, well, maybe mine's stupid because he didn't do this, So, but then after that, you realize, who cares? Like, what any of this means? Like, Albert Einstein apparently didn't talk till he was 6, and he's Albert Einstein. So like, who cares? And so now I think that's the thing. After your second and third, you enjoy them more, and you realize, man, now that first one, we wanted to grow up so fast. He did grow up, and he's 14 now, and he doesn't want to be around us. And we missed all the fun stuff where they're just goofy and curious and ask a bunch of questions that I remember that used to annoy me. I'd be like, why you ask so many questions right now? Like, you enjoy it. But I would say that because of that, it's one of the better Father's Days, because I just chilled out, man. Just decided to like it, and then tried not to. I just shut my mouth in the car. So every time they asked when we're going to be there, we're going to do this, I just try to keep my mouth shut. I think I probably only yelled once, just when I was like, look, that's the 900th time you've asked. You don't even have a concept of time. So it's like, might as well just not ask, right? But all in all, it was good, man. And speaking of that, what I want to talk about here before we get into the tournament stuff too, I don't think, have we talked since the Dean Lister seminar or no?
No,
on the
we've not. And I was thinking that we probably, in hindsight, we probably should, I wasn't in that big of a hurry. We should have done a podcast that night. But yes. I think you had to get him to the airport.
Yeah, there was things that changed that night. Yeah, I think I had the same thoughts as you. And it was, the problem was, just the flights getting in and out. And, even the flight here, he was originally going to drive from Virginia because he made a pit stop in Virginia, and then they were out of rental cars. This pandemic, apparently everything in the world's empty now. So then we had to make another flight, which just made his travel kind of crazy. So he don't end up wanting to get out here. So we didn't get to hang out as much as possible. And you're right, the cool things that even that little dinner that we all hung out wasn't good enough, meaning that that's usually where I connect with everybody, right? And then we become lifelong friends, all of us, right? Like, but I don't think that part we got to. Like, I had a great time with Dean, and he's a great guy, and I think we'd all consider my friend now. But did we make that bond or connection? Probably not, right? We didn't have enough time, and he doesn't really know us. We're just more with him.
It certainly wasn't the same opportunity we had with, like, when we had the Rumble seminar, and we got to go out that night, hang out with him, and like wasn't that chance to like talk about all the stuff that we had in common.
Exactly.
And it's finding all those things you have in common with somebody is what really builds those friendships. Mm-hmm. It's got to be more than just jujitsu for us to just to have a lifelong relationship or whatever. And we got the chance to do that with Rumble. We really didn't get a chance to like talk to him when just about life stuff in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of that too, and we'll go back to Dean Lester, but Rumble is one of the people that reached out to me with the eye thing. So I'm very appreciative. He's a great guy. And because of that, it reminded me like, hey, we need to have him back in. he's game for it too. So we talked about that a little bit. They said just send him some dates and we'll get it worked out, you know, in between his Bellator fights. And he would like to come down too. He has a good friend in Huntington named Josh Carey that I'm sure it would be a dual thing. If he came down to hang out with us and train with us, he'd get to hang out with Josh as well. So we'll get that set up, you know, and I'll bounce some ideas off with you, and hopefully everybody will agree, you know, I mean, because he's a lot of fun, right? I mean, he's a legend. He's a good guy. I mean, probably one of the most genuine guys, and a guy that we did create that bond with because we had some more time with him. We had a couple days to play around. And here's the one thing I do love about when fighters come during the summer and get to train with us is that, and another thing we missed with Dean is that you get to show them West Virginia. Like a lot of people are like, I've never been to West Virginia because there's really no reason to, right? And it's a shame if they don't get to enjoy the state, meaning like I've taken some guys zip lining and you know, just in the forest, whitewater rafting a couple of times, you know, all those things that you can say, hey, let's do this, like whatever it is. And again, we missed that with Dean. We got to do that a little bit with Rumble. And it'd be better if we could, you know, plan that, like, hey, you're coming on Saturday, but Friday night we're going to go to New River Gorge and we're going to do this or whatever it is, right? Or Hocking Hills by you, or, you know, I'm saying there's a ton of stuff that we can do that that they should be able to enjoy. I think that makes the experience better personally, right?
Yeah, well, and I, you know, being new to own an academy and not really knowing how other people treat experiences like having somebody like a Rumble or a Dean Lister in, but you know, a lot of their focus is just to, I'm on this tour, I need to pound out this tour and get back to home. For Dean, it's in San Diego, and you know, whoever else it is, Rumble is in Florida, and but they're just trying to get through it, and they don't really take a chance to breathe, I wouldn't think, on their tour when they're going across the country, when they're, you know, they're like you said, stop in Virginia, then to us, then they're moving on to, who knows, you know, it might be Indianapolis and then back over to Cleveland and then off to Texas, and they don't get a chance to take in the stuff. So it really is up to the academy owners to kind of like,
you gotta go the extra
when you host somebody, to be an actual host.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of them do that.
No, well, and it gets complicated too. Like, say for this one, for example, a lot of times what happens is you'll get a third party involved, which is good and bad because, as you know, like the guy we dealt with this time, David, sorry guys, but that was a very nice guy. But their job is just to book as many seminars and many trips as possible, so that it actually doesn't behoove them to have those pit stops, because again, and if I was just looking at it on paper, if I was that guy, I'd be like you, I'd say, yeah, we just need to run through this and keep it going, right? Which makes sense because it's going to be a long time. You just need to get through. But that's where sometimes it's better. Like sometimes we're dealing with in between. Like the first time I was able to really talk to Dean was like a couple days before he was finally coming, right? Because a lot of times too, they want to keep those guys separate from you. Because they don't want you, not that David was doing this, but they don't want you to change the deal behind them, right? Like they make a certain deal because those people get a percentage. So they don't want you to talk behind them because maybe, and I'm sure people do that, like, hey, why don't you do this? And you do that. And then you're kind of like screwing with what they got, which is business, right? That's perfectly fine. But that limits the stuff that you can do. It's kind of a bummer, right? Like, and I feel like that's what happened a little bit this time. And just to your point, like when Dean landed, it was, let's say 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. So the seminar was noonish, something like that.
Yeah.
First thing he was like, let's go, because there's somewhere I can take a nap. I'll go to the gym. He was dead. And so I took him home. Luckily, I live 10 minutes from the airport, luckily. So I said, well, let's go to the house. I put him up actually where I'm doing this podcast now. And he's able to go to sleep for a while. And I mean, and he wanted to sleep for every last second. Cause I was like, hey, you know, we're about 15 minutes from the gym. He's like, well, wake me up at 11:45. Right. I was like, well, we're going to be late. And he's like, every minute counts, man. So obviously he was wore out. So that's another reason, like, yeah, he wasn't wanting to do dinner and do all that stuff. I get it. Right. It's like, and I didn't want to impose either, because part of being a good host is reading the room, right? And if your guy's like, man, I am just wore out, I don't want to be like miserable, being out, because it doesn't mean that necessarily I think the guy's going to have fun with me, but maybe they're not, right? Maybe they're with a bunch of people that just keep asking them the same questions I answer all the time. And they're like, man, I just want to go home and see my wife or whatever, you know? So yeah, bottom line is that part sucked, but the seminar wise, let's talk about that for anybody that wants to train with Dean. I thought it was great. I thought, luckily I had bought pretty much the same material that we're going over. BJJ Fanatics sells, I think he had IBJJF legal leg lock. So it's literally basically the same stuff. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I purposely bought it so that I was like, hey, like, I don't want to just be lost when he comes. Let's get a background. So we did. And I thought it really helped, but it made me make the connections that I was teaching the material off of what he was teaching on the DVD. But when he came, it actually put it better, because he was like, no, I put my hand here on this, and this is why. And then the stories that, you know, a lot of people liked, they're impactful. Like he was saying, hey, I made this leg lock, or I put my leg here because a guy kept kicking me in the taint, right? Right. And so I call it the door stopper. So that made you remember, okay, that's why I need my leg here, is because, you know, and then, you know, making fun of that guy, you know, the way he yelled. And I got more comments on that from friends saying, I didn't realize how funny he was. And that's really, I think, sometimes how you remember material, because he's like, he did this and it was funny and I remember, and it was a good seminar, right?
That was one of the things I was, because I've listened to Dean talk in interviews before, and we had, even when we had him on the podcast that we did,
yeah,
he didn't really come off as funny, you know. And part of that might have been the fact that COVID, and he was, you know, we were all kind of bummed that we weren't doing as much jujitsu as we wanted to do, and it was in the midst of all of that. But he didn't really come off. I mean, he had some stories, but he didn't come off as funny.
yeah,
He is a different guy when he's doing jujitsu.
yes,
And it was like, I was like, oh my God, I thought he was going to be kind of a little more serious, a little more buttoned up. And nah, man, he just, everything was like, hey, let's have fun.
Yeah, and I would have been fine with that too, right? Like if he was just dry. I mean, because the material is top notch, and he's telling you, I actually love when, like, for example, we've done some seminars with De La Riva, right? And arguably we were, for a while, like I would say a De La Riva gym, since Marcelo taught so much De La Riva hook and stuff. But it just, I love when somebody says, hey, I invented this move because of this. And like, I'm like, yeah, this is De La Riva. Like, it's literally what I'm doing is, that's the guy. So I love it. It just made me happy. And I got that same feeling from Dean when he was like, yeah, I tried this forever and it kind of worked. And then I had to switch it because the guy did this. And then I'm like, that's so amazing. Cause like everybody else is doing what you're doing. And then the fact that I know, because it's so popular, you know, like, you know, John Donaher's getting a lot of credit for, you know, 50% of the body. Why we ignore 50% of the body? And that's actually a Dean Lister phrase. And Dean Lister, arguably, you know, and also, just when I say this, and when we both say this, he's very humble. So like, and he made a thing like when he was saying I was doing 50-50 before it was called 50-50, he was not like being braggadocious or anything. Like he was saying, hey, everybody thinks they invented moves in jiu-jitsu, and then you look at a book and then 1800s they're doing the same thing. So he's like, I'm not saying I invented this, but I was doing 50-50 and 411 and all this stuff before they were called those moves, and I didn't know, you know, and blah blah blah. And so I think that's awesome, you know.
Yeah, well, and we kind of talked about it, you know, like the Eddie Bravo stuff, the rubber guard, which just, it's a high guard, and he wasn't the first guy to grab, like Williams guard. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't the first guy to grab a hold of the thigh and lock up the arm like that. But he was, what it is it's just like the Kimura wasn't called the Kimura before Kimura broke Gracie's arm.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was probably,
things get recognition because people get really good at it. I'm actually kind of surprised that things like the omoplata haven't become like, it's the Clark Gracie.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Everybody knows that good-looking son of a gun, like he's the one who used it and has found a dozen different ways to finish it, and things get highlighted for individuals because of their use in tournaments, you know, or because of their use in competition. The Von Flu is a perfect example of a choke that has been around. It's just a head and arm choke from side when a guy doesn't let go of your head.
Yeah. But it
And
got called people didn't know what it was, right? Like, and no, and you're exactly right. And we talk about that at gym a lot. Like things will get highlighted at a certain point, they become revolutionary, but it's not revolutionary is not the greatest word, but they become popular. So everybody's doing them, like you said. And before Clark Gracie, there was like Nino Schembri or what. I don't know if you guys remember, if you remember him, right? That was the omoplata guy. And then but even like in the half guard, I can remember where half guard wasn't a thing. It was a transition back to full guard, right? And then all of a sudden, Salo Hiberio really in competition made it famous. And I remember being there actually at the Arnold's with him going with Conan Silveria and some other guys and just really highlighting the half guard. But then you can argue Gordo, he had, some half guards. I mean, on and on and on. And then of course, then it becomes, half butterfly, half, this and that. And then it becomes popular, just like, leg locks. Now you can say that Danaher probably did revolutionize the leg game, because I mean, quite frankly, just like Dean said, everybody was doing the same basic leg lock that now all of us can just kind of brush the foot aside and step over, kind of butt scoot over the leg lock. And they're doing more leg entanglements, which is what ashy means, inside, outside ashy, and saddle position, all that. So those things, but again, they were kind of there, just like Dean said, he was doing that stuff before they were called what they were called. But now, if anything, there's a system. I think actually that's what John Danaher does the best. He might not be inventing moves per se, but he's putting them in a system, which makes it easy to learn and remember and to teach, quite frankly, right? So anyway, it's amazing stuff. I'm super happy, and I know we had a few leg lockers at the seminar, of course, and Nate and Justin, and obviously I'm probably missing people, but they were happy too. And I would say that we could have done more heel hook stuff and did this and did that, but I liked what he said too. Is like, look, this is open circuit, right? And we're going to focus on that, which means we're not entangling our legs, but it's a transition to all those other things. But you need to know this, and I like the way that, because I have, like I said, I have his DVD set or streaming set, and he didn't really say that, or maybe he didn't, I just glossed over it, but it was like, okay, now I get it, right? Because I kept thinking like, we're just doing a straight foot lock, that's what we're doing the whole time, like where's the cool stuff, right? And not that I was really thinking that, but I get now the kind of how he put it together, and I think it was awesome. And to train with a legend, I think one of the probably unfortunate things is he just blew his spleen out not too long ago, right? So it would have been cool if we all rolled with him like we did Rumble or Stefan Bonner, like on and on and on, all the other people that trained with us, right? That's always the fun part. But also, I also appreciate those guys for doing that, especially if you're on a long seminar tour and you don't know these people and you have to go. And of course, everybody's going to go balls to the wall after you, and not that they can't handle it, but it's your body takes a beating with all the travel and stuff. So I'm not like, when they don't roll, it's like, I'm not like butthurt about it, if for lack of better term. I get it, I mean, it's a lot to handle, but it would have been nice. It'd been like some of my fondest memories are rolling with people like that, Jeff Monson and all these people, and just and when I roll with people, I go like too, because I know that same thing, but it's just I remember like we talked about De La Riva, like putting De La Riva in De La Riva, I was so happy just because of that. I was like, it's mind blowing. I've got De La Riva in De La Riva, and then he passed in like a half a second. I'm like, oh yeah, he invented this. Of course, I can't keep him here. Like he passed it like butter. It's like, but that was so fun. It was maybe just a 10-minute roll, but after it was over, I was just like, it was awesome. Like I got to go with the guy, which is always the greatest thing about jiu-jitsu in my mind, is that we can roll and talk to people that actually invented moves, more or less. If we're talking about Brazilian jiu-jitsu, obviously Japanese jiu-jitsu has been around forever, but it's just kind of cool. Or again, maybe it's not that they invented it, but it's more like they made it popular. So it's cool to say, hey, I roll with De La Riva. He put me in De La Riva. And again, speaking of that, I've talked to him about that, and Marcelo, I think you were there, but that by Carlson Gracie is called the Jello guard again. And that's what he taught De La Riva, which came the De La Riva. That's what we know it as. But again, another set of moves that's always been there, but there's a guy that made that popular. But speaking of seminars,
it's kind of like nicknames, though, right? Like a good nickname, you didn't give the nickname yourself. The nickname was given to you, right? You didn't do it. So maybe you're a big guy named Tim, and so you're Tiny Tim or whatever it is. But the nickname fits you, and you get. it's not, it happens kind of naturally, right? And it's the same thing. Like you hit a move in competition, or you become known as the guy. Like we've talked about Brad, one of the guys that does crucifix, and it's kind of his thing now, and he's got the right body type for it. And I'm not sure how he's got potential to go pretty far in jiu-jitsu, especially competitively. He already has. He's got a bunch of fight to win competitions that he's won. He's medaled Pan Ams as far as like brown belt, and he's pretty well known in Ohio and doing pretty good outside of that. He's got a ton of crucifix finishes. He's gonna be when everybody thinks crucifix, they're gonna think of him.
Yeah, because when else do you see that? It's very rare you see that, right? In a normal life, right? Yeah.
And as I mean, I can't think of a string of competitions that he's gone to where he hasn't at least every other he has a pretty nice crucifix submission. And he's doing it against guys that are pretty high level. I mean, we're talking about brown belt Pan Am guys, and he submits them with crucifix chokes.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? Like I remember when years ago, when Ryan Hall he wasn't exactly famous, but he was starting to get known, right? He competed in a Ground Zero tournament in Morgantown, and he's competed there a couple of times. But one time when he went, he was working on Darce chokes, right? And so he submitted everybody with a Darce choke. They knew it was coming, but he was so solid at it, it didn't matter. And I've known Ryan Hall ins and out since he was a blue belt. It's actually when he was a blue belt training with Lloyd Irvin. Lloyd Irvin was training Brandon Vera at the time, and Brandon Vera was getting ready for a fight with Tim Sylvia. So Lloyd and Brandon were looking for tall people, which I fit the bill. So I went down with Adam Sepulveda, which is another guy that he's a black belt that I don't train with now because he moved to Florida, but I think he might still be a part of American Top Team. But anyway, besides the point. So anyway, we trained, and Ryan Hall's just a blue belt at the time, but he was known for triangles at the time, and they had a nickname of Ryangle. And it was funny because we didn't know him, but I think people started to know him because Lloyd was very good at marketing. So he would market people like crazy. And
he had that Kumite, he did the Kumite, and that was about the same time. It was a little bit after that he had, why is his name? The worm guard. His name's escaped.
Keenan
Cornelius. Thank you. Yeah. So it was the same time that he had the Kumite going on, and Keenan at the time was, I think, a brown belt, or maybe he just got his brown belt, was making big splash, and the Kumite came out, and it was around that same time that Ryan Hall was like the Ryangle guy.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like, we didn't know him, and then he was jokingly make bets with it. He'd be like, hey, if I can triangle you in the next 5 minutes, you got to buy me dinner. We're like, whatever, because he's this little skinny blue belt. Yeah, I'm like, okay. And then he'd just smoke us and be like laughing, and it's interesting to see, those guys, how they progress. And even at that time, I'll tell you what, like Ryan Hall was an amazing instructor, which is really cool because he's still, I haven't listened on my list to listen to is the Lex Freeman podcast with him, which I'm sure is amazing because Lex Freeman does a good job. He's real calm and he just really has people focused. I've enjoyed some of his podcasts with John Danaher and even with that one Commander David Fravor about aliens has nothing to jiu-jitsu. But I do like the way that it's just a calm and it's a direct and he keeps people on target. And so anyway, I would like to listen to it. But the way he taught, he also did a seminar on triangles a couple of years after we trained with him in Morgantown. And it was one of the better seminars because he could really break down the muscle groups that you're using when you use a triangle and why you need to do a certain way because you're involving more muscles and things that like normal people don't really teach, right? Like I don't teach. I show maybe a good technique and kind of break it down, but the way he was breaking it down, it just made sense because he's like, well, if you do it this way and flex your foot this way and you're involving your hamstring and you're doing this and the larger muscle groups and make sure that you get, I was like, man, that's awesome, and I don't know per se if he got that from Lloyd or if he got that from himself because I've known a lot of Lloyd Irvin practitioners and nobody really taught like that. Not saying they don't, it's just like, I also agree. I also think that Gordon Ryan's a good teacher. Every time I've seen him explain something, it's been pretty phenomenal. And I've learned just watching, just random clips of him and whoever, even Tom DeBlas. I just, maybe it comes from what they hear from John Danaher, or it comes a little bit from both, meaning themselves and them. But I have a warm affinity for people that can also teach phenomenally as well as compete phenomenally, because it's not one and the same. Just like every other sport, it doesn't, like if you're Michael Jordan, it doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. Typically you're not. So it's amazing when the guy can also teach as good as they are as a competitor. It probably happens more time in jiu-jitsu and MMA, luckily for us, but it's still amazing. I'll never stop. I love athletes, of course, but I'll never stop loving good coaches, and because it's something I do, right? So I like to listen to it and try to model some things and steal some things from people and try to bring it into my game, of course, but anyway, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And I will tell you this on another note too, since we're talking about seminars. I was lucky enough to talk. I'm going to be doing a self-defense seminar on Zoom, which is kind of goofy, but the reason I'm doing it, we have this thing here in West Virginia called Girls Night Out all the time. And it's just what it sounds. It's a thing to get girls together every, let's say August, I think it is. And they'll rent out these different places. For example, one time they had it at the Charleston airport, an airport hangar, and they have all these women come, and just a night, they drink and have fun. It's cool. It's a good thing. And they give them money to something. So I think this year it's domestic violence and stuff like that. So it does have and that's why I'm doing the Zoom thing. It has a theme that kind of works out for us, like self-defense, right? So what I'm going to do is basically do a demonstration for this, because I think for some reason they're still doing it virtual, even though most things are opening now. I think maybe they just decided they're going to do some virtual, instead of getting everybody together, maybe they'll just do it this way. But anyway, that's besides the point. It was that's the cool part. But the guy that's going to film it has just got back from filming Miesha Tate, which I think is awesome. Random, right? He's like, hey, I was just at Extreme Couture filming a lot of the stuff for the upcoming UFC countdown show for Miesha Tate, and about where she just had a baby a year ago, and now she's fighting in the UFC and her life's changed, blah, blah, blah. I have been trying to get Miesha here for 10 plus years. It's like, because my 14-year-old was in love with her back in the Ronda Rousey fight. So I don't know how long ago that was, but I do know that little booger watched that fight probably 50 times. Like every time I walk in the room, I'm like, why are you watching this fight? Like and it was funny, even though obviously Miesha lost, the one he liked the best was the one she got her arm folded in half. But right. He's in love with her, like, and so are other people at my gym. So on one side, I would like to have her for that. And I told that guy that too. He's connected me with her manager, and ironically, her mom has called me a couple of years ago, because I'd emailed her so much trying to get her down here that her mom answered the email, said, hey, I just want to call you and like let you know what's going on. And there's some stuff that was going on that I don't want to talk about on here that in her personal life that we couldn't get her down. But there's a chance now. There's a chance. And one, again, first, there's a lot of people in my gym that love her. Some that think she's just hot. Yeah. And then there's some that like appreciate her. But the other thing is really why I would like her, and probably you would have the same thing. I would like to see women's MMA and jiu-jitsu grow, and she's probably a vehicle to do it because she is a pretty girl, right? Like it's weird. It's like if you have it is what it is, right? If you have a girl that you can't relate to, people are like, well, yeah, she looks like a man. I can't relate to her. I'm not that. But if you have a girl that looks like a girl and she's fighting world title fights, then you're like, okay, I can relate to that. If she can do it, I can do it. Does that make sense? At least that's what I think.
No, and at 100, no, it's a huge part of it. I think that's the reason, because she was at one for a while, and she was like, I can't remember her title, but it was like
almost like a vice president,
president, marketing or something. I can't remember exactly what the title was, but the reason that she was there is because she showed that you can be both, like you can still be a woman and be badass. Like they don't have to be separated. They don't have to be. I guess the first one to do that would be Gina Carano.
Yeah.
Where it was like you could be attractive, but you can still be a badass. Go out there. I remember that there was a lot a lot behind the fight between Gina Carano and Cyborg when they had their match, and then Gina kind of went uh, into the movie realm and started doing all that stuff. But it is reassuring. It sickens me a little bit that there are guys like Wonder Boy or Chris Weidman or Luke Rockhold who have everything. Like they're amazingly good looking.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they're amazingly like great athletes and naturally good athletes and elites. But it's also nice to see that you can have both of those qualities, especially for women. And I think a lot of times, I have one of the girls in my kids class. She always thought that she was weird because she liked doing tomboyish type stuff.
Yeah.
And she liked running, getting dirty, and playing rough and tumble, and she, like, after she came into jiu-jitsu, and she's been with me for quite a few months now, and it was one of those things where her mom was like, she always felt like she was weird, and she felt like that she didn't belong anywhere. And she's a good-looking kid, but on top of being a good-looking kid, she just likes to be rough and tumble. And I see Miesha Tate as kind of that same kind of person. So not only for women does it show you like, hey, you can be feminine, but also kind of be a badass. But like for little girls, like it's nice to have that, the fact that you don't have to look like a guy in order to fight like a guy.
Yeah. Well, it's relatable, right? It's relatable. And that's, it's unfortunate, right? Because we don't think about it with guys. And it was a good thing you mentioned it, but it's like, you don't think about it because Luke Rockhold, right, is a model, right? I think from something. So he's a model. So he, like you said, he's got it all, but in general, like we don't think about it. So if a girl's watching it, they do think about it. Let's be honest, right? And we don't care if they're ugly. They're like usually the uglier the better. That means they got scars and they fought pretty hard, and that's what we're looking for. And it is, on one hand, it's sad because you have people like Paige Van Zant and the Karate Hottie and stuff like that. And then when they fight bare knuckle in Paige Van Zant's thing, the most thing that people are saying is that I can't believe she's going to mess up her face, right? Like that's so stupid, and it's sad that that's the commentary more often than not on women's fighting. Right. And it is unfortunate, especially if you're women's thing. Like I get it, but it's a men dominated sport, which means probably 80 to 90% of men are actually watching and consuming that. So it does unfortunately go with the territory. If your demographic is mostly men, unfortunately men, some of them are pigs, right? They want some good looking girl, and it is what it is. Marketing wise, it is what it is. Same goes for men. So who gets marketed better, Luke Rockhold or, Cabbage or Tank Abbott, right? It just depends, right? Yeah. And that's a bad example, but some of those guys get well, a good example is Josh Barnett was a great fighter. He just didn't have the body that UFC was looking for. So he never, in my opinion, never got the push. And then when he did win the title, they were just anxious to get him out. Same with Tim Sylvia, some people that were very dominant. And then you see other people get a push, like, Brock Lesnar is kind of a bad example, but even Alistair Overeem, these guys look like what you want, right? And so then they're getting.
I think a good example would be Chet Congo, because Chet Congo had the body, and it's not to say that he wasn't a good fighter. He's a great fighter, obviously, but I always thought of him as like a second to third tier UFC guy. Like I never thought he would be a champion, but first team, all body. Like, if you asked me, what do you want to look like? I want to look like Chet Congo.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. You're right.
But at the same time, I remember the night that he was fighting somebody like, he fought Big Country, Roy Nelson.
Yeah, there's a good.
And I knew about Roy Nelson before everybody else for Ultimate Fighter because of jiu-jitsu, and I knew he had the match with Frank Mir, and I'd seen his jiu-jitsu, and I was like, I don't know. Now that he's found his hands, Chet Congo has had his jaw tested. Like a buddy of mine, he called me up. He was like, "Who you got in this fight?" And I was like, "Man, to be honest, if the Nevada Gaming Commission decided to let Chuck Congo come in with a baseball bat, I would say it's even money.
Yeah.
Like I was that big on Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson ended up knocking him out. And if you look at the two guys, you're like, one guy is going to win and the other guy is going to pass out and have a heart attack in 3 minutes. And so, so body types, they definitely, I can't even remember where we got. I've had way too much rye whiskey. So I've gotten off on the tangent.
No, you're right. We're just talking about why, first of all, why it was unfair that women are judged because of their looks and stuff. And then,
right.
But let's be honest, and that's what the point is. We don't think about it because we're guys and we're not worried about what Chicago looks like, but there is. So even though we don't think about it, those guys are getting the push. I mean, Chuck Congo was in a number of main events. Hell, I was in his main event with Pat Barry in Pittsburgh. He was the main event. Like you said, doesn't mean he wasn't a good fighter, but I would argue that he was getting a push because of what he looked like. He's a freak of nature.
And he still looks like that. He still looks amazing. And he got that push because of his build. Because people like to see that. People like to see action figures out there.
They do, yes, yeah. And if you're lucky to have both, that's what I'm saying. I do feel bad for, like you mentioned, Roy Nelson, Josh Barnett, Tim Sylvia, several guys that just didn't have. They're not genetically gifted like that, or they were overweight at some point, so they've got loose skin. They're just not going to look like certain people. It is a bummer, right? Like, and it's not that Stipe, for example, doesn't look like that, but there's a guy that on paper is the greatest UFC heavyweight of history. And it's like they do not give him attention whatsoever. Now, our talk is about being a good-looking guy and this and that. So he's probably fine. It has something to do probably with his personality that doesn't mix well with him. Maybe I don't know why he doesn't get a push, right? I mean, when he loses a title fight, it's like pulling teeth to get a rematch, where Conor McGregor loses a fight and it's like, it doesn't matter who it is. It has nothing to do with the title. And they're like, let's give him a rematch. That's all we're talking about is rematch with Nate Diaz or Dustin Poirier or whoever, right? Where Stipe is like longest running heavyweight champion of the world. And he loses a fight and it's like, they don't give a shit if he gets a rematch or not. It's like when he finally gets a rematch, it's because everybody else won't fight, right? It's like, it's sad. Now that's, again, it's probably getting off target to a little bit, but it all goes together, meaning that there's a lot involved, which is with marketing and who gets a push is your personality, your looks. So those are unfortunate things. They are what they are, right? And I've told people, like, I was a manager for a long time of fighters, and I had fighters. And what I told my fighters way back when is that I was like, look, you weigh 155 pounds and we're going to go fight in Kentucky. When we're from West Virginia, you're not a ticket seller. So in order to get you on the card, there's got to be a reason. You got to be memorable. And people want to see you fight, because if they can choose 100 different 155 pounders, why are they going to choose you? They've got a lot of options. And some people got that and some people didn't, right? And that's unfortunately, I know a lot of people, a lot of purists are like, look, I'm tired of the WWE action and I just want to see people fight. I agree. Unfortunately, if you don't, like Colby Covington was a great example. They're going to kick him out of the UFC. He was not Colby Covington. What Colby Covington is not what he is apparently in real life. I don't know the guy in real life, but I do know that it's a character that he plays. This Colby Covington, MAGA, Trump, it's all fake. It's just a character. Him with women, it's all character. But that's what kept him in the UFC. They're literally going to kick him out. He made the character, started insulting Brazil. Next thing you know, they're like, hey, man, whatever you did, just keep doing it because people are going crazy and the numbers up. Now you tune in to see his ass get kicked. The point is, it's just marketing, right? Some of it's looks. Unfortunately for women, it's a lot of looks. Ronda Rousey had the looks and she had the attitude. Cyborg's got the attitude. Miesha Tate's got, they all got something, right? And I guess what brought it up is just to say that, I do agree somewhat. If I was a woman, I'd be a little bit annoyed, but I'm just comparing it to what it is also in the men. We just don't think about it. It's the same. It literally is the same, right? There's a lot going on that you don't think about. That all being said, not to go down that rabbit hole, I would hope that we get her here. So let's put it that way.
well, regardless, I hope you're able to get her there too, because like I've watched her from, all of her fights in Strikeforce. She's a Strikeforce champion, right? And she like and I'm kind of a MMA nerd especially like old school MMA, anything, before 2008. Like I I was completely into MMA before anybody else, before the Stephan Bonner Forrest Griffin fight. And and we've kind of talked about that. Like all that stuff is what drew me to jujitsu. The Dan Severn Hoist Gracie fight. Like that's the reason I do jujitsu. And a lot of us guys, older guys who do jujitsu, that's what brought us there. And now it's guys like Jocko who have gotten us into jujitsu, or Joe Rogan and podcasting, and that's what's getting to now. But before 2010, 2009, there was no podcasting then. And if you didn't watch UFC, if you weren't watching Strikeforce, if you weren't watching Pride, if you weren't watching any of the old Pancration stuff, then you didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu or any of the Valley Tudo stuff. So I appreciate Miesha Tate for being around before some of that was even a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she look, and I'll tell you what drew me to her. 100%. I mean, she's a pretty girl, but 100% wasn't. It was the fact that she was always, in my opinion, even as a champion, like a come from behind fighter. Like she would lose a round or be losing the whole fight. I think, was it Sarah McLaughlin or what? There's a couple of fights where I can think she's getting her butt kicked the whole time, and then
Holly Holm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
she lost 4 rounds to Holly Holm and choked her in the 5th round. Choked her unconscious.
Yeah, and she had a couple fights like that, right? And it's like, and that was even the intrigue when Ronda Rousey on top of the world, and even the fight where she got her arm bent in half. The couple rounds it was competitive, right? Like she was coming back, and that's when Ronda Rousey was unbeatable, and she was just enjoyable, right? Because she also had good jiu-jitsu, which was awesome, and good wrestling. She was a wrestler. People didn't even know that. She wrestled in high school. And then she started having good stand-up, and quite frankly, her jiu-jitsu demos that she did with her boyfriend at the time were amazing. That Brian Caraway, and just amazing stuff. I think she hung out a lot with Team Alpha Male at the time. I think, right? If I'm right, but anyway, listen, she was one of the pioneers of women's MMA. There's a couple, you can go with Cyborg, but I would tell you that who made that popular 100% was Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey. That fight was a marquee. Because you had 2 beautiful girls that talked a lot of trash, that had a great fights. They backed up everything they said. And, before that you had Gina Carano and Cyborg, and that was a great fight, but everybody was keyed on. It was almost like Cyborg was unbeatable, and you had this pretty girl that shouldn't be in there, and she was doing good. And then, unfortunately, that's the bad thing, is all these pretty girls, they end up going to movies, and then that's it, right? Like we never saw Gina Carano again,
Well, and I think a big part of it was Gina Carano was pretty, and she knew the money was in movies. It wasn't in fighting. Before Ronda Rousey, who was making millions of dollars before Ronda Rousey fighting?
Yeah. And then props to Gina that her and Mandalorian, she's great, right? Like it's up until that point, I would argue that I saw her in some movies as it was nothing memorable, right? The Expendables and some other stuff, but it's like I felt, it's nothing memorable, but she does a good job, man. And a lot different, but yeah, those guys, they made some good moves. And, I don't know if Ronda's still getting some movie stuff and whatever, but good for them, man. Randy Couture got some movies. Good for all those guys and girls that got some stuff and was able to make the transition, because the fight game's not long. And then, it's the funny thing. If all you're known is for a pretty girl, that's the unfortunate. You're not going to last long, because you're just going to get your ass kicked, and they're not going to keep putting somebody on that loses. They don't, right? That's the thing. Paige Van Zandt was the hottest thing around, right? People loved her, and then she's got cut, right? She's not even in the UFC. And anyway, the reason I bring it up is I know a lot of people, they harp on that, but there's a lot of things that are, like, quite frankly, you could debunk, meaning that, yeah, that does help with your marketing thing, but the bottom line is you still got to fight, right? If you are a hot girl or a good looking guy and you can't fight, you can't back it up, or you're a good talker like a Conor McGregor, but you can't win, like you're not going to be in there forever. There's probably exceptions to that rule. If Conor McGregor kept selling, 1 million pay-per-view buys and he kept losing, then he'll still be in there. I'm saying? It's a little different. It's like the Logan Paul and Mayweather fight. It doesn't matter that he lost. If I don't know what the numbers are, by chance, do you know what the numbers were on the Logan Paul? No. Well, let's speak of that. Did you watch that?
I know. Speaking of that, I know I allegedly stole it. That's an allegation.
Yeah. Well,
I don't. Some people have said that I may not have purchased that and watched.
Yeah, but I hear that from a lot. I think the way the things are now, majority of people I know is the same thing. They watched online and they didn't stream it, right? They watched somebody else's thing, and it is what it is. But it's interesting. What do you think about it's a tough one, man. Because here's the thing. I'm in a house. My 14-year-old had all his friends over, and they proceeded to, I made bets with all of them because they kept saying, you don't know, like Logan Paul's going to win this fight. You don't know. And I'm like, I feel like I do know. And I feel like you guys are wrong. And so I took those bets all night. And then of course I didn't make them pay out, but they still think they won. Here's the thing. When you bring a lot of fight fans or a lot of fans of YouTubers to a fight, they're still not fight fans. So when that's over, they all think that Logan Paul won that fight. Like you can't tell them any different, that he beat the best boxer in the world. So that's still interesting, right? Like, so that means
well, I know you came up in the boxing world, and I never boxed. I didn't do it really. When I was 16, I went over to Sam's gym and I did a little boxing over there. I got punched in the face and was like, hey, I don't really like this. And I was already wrestling in high school, so I was like, I'll just stick to wrestling, and kind of shied away from striking. But as a kid growing up, and my dad passed away when I was 17, but as a kid growing up, and I remember Tuesday night fights and Friday night fights on ESPN, and that was life for me and my dad. Watching Vinny Pazienza is still probably my favorite fighter of all time, and I loved him, right? And so, like, growing up, I have fond memories of boxing. Vinny Pazienza, Julio Cesar Chavez, and watching obviously Tyson was huge. Evander Holyfield coming up, and then Evander Holyfield Tyson when that became a thing. Watching Lennox Lewis, all of those guys, and then George Foreman coming back, and all of those classic fights, Hagler, Hearn. Like, I enjoyed all of that. And my biggest thing now, and I know that all of these guys have a limited, we kind of talked about, all of these guys have a limited amount of time to make money. But their soiling of the sport by fighting no-name boxers, right? Their names because of YouTube, but really they don't have a name in the boxing world. Kind of bugs me. And I think it's going to destroy boxing more than it's going to help it. I don't think it's bringing extra eyes to it.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, because it's hard to say, because I don't know what it helps or hurts the sport, but it does make people, like I said, those kids that are at my house, 5, 6 of them, it didn't make them boxing fans, because now they think anybody can just suit up and go against the greatest boxer of all time, right? And kick his ass, or at least go, what I'm saying? It's not like when you and I were young, the thought of somebody fighting Mike Tyson would have obliterated that person. Now, Mike Tyson also was a 40-year-old man that was retired. There's been fights, but now when Muhammad Ali fought Lyle Alzado, there's been these spectacle fights through the time. But it's a little different, right? Like, I think when those things happen, nobody's expecting Lyle Alzado to win, it's just different. And that's why they didn't last. It was like people watched it to watch it, but nobody was like, hey, this guy's got a shot. It's just like, are you going to watch? And then the numbers didn't pan out. So that's why those fights failed, right? I don't know.
Well, but we had celebrity boxing, right? And I'm not against the idea of celebrities going into a ring and fighting. I'm okay with that. We had Jose Canseco fighting in the and he's fought like legit MMA guys. But we also had Dustin Diamond fighting Danny Bonaducci, and Tanya Harding had her fight. So it's not that the celebrity. I understand making $1. I get that, but it just as much. I don't know. It comes back to the idea of real martial artists, and boxing, in my opinion, is a martial art. Wrestling's a martial art. I wish that it would be treated with the regard. If I was to call out Gordon Ryan wouldn't compete against me.
Good point. It's a good point. Yeah.
And the reason is because I don't deserve to be on the same stage as Gordon Ryan. And bar that, probably nobody that I know personally in my close circle deserves to be on a stage with Gordon Ryan. He is the greatest in the world. For me to call him out is kind of silly. Now, in jiu-jitsu world, I would probably be able to make a little bit of money doing it. And if I had a big enough mouth and I talked enough shit, then maybe I would get a couple hits. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't belong there. And he could toy with me. And I feel that I feel it's kind of the same way. I feel like that would lessen jiu-jitsu.
Well, so let me ask you this then. Are you, because that's a guy that's never boxed before, maybe had one boxing fight, versus arguably one of the greatest ever, right? Are you more okay with Jake Paul fighting shitty basketball or MMA fighters because they're not real?
Yeah,
with the exception of Tyron Woodley, and that's no knock on Ben Askren. I actually had this talk at the gym the other day because people are like, well, he beat this guy. And I'm like, yeah, but like if I sparred Ben Askren, I'd still be like pretty happy. He's a pro fighter, and I'm not saying I would knock him out. I don't think a stand-up's good either. But like it still takes some skill to knock him out with one punch. And I don't want to overshadow a guy that does actually have some skill. He's like let's put you and I in the ring with Nate Robinson or whatever his name is and Ben Askren. Like, does it mean that I'm going to knock both of them out or that you are? I don't know. I'm not saying that I would. Like, I'm being realistic. Like, the guy beat the guys, and now he's going to go with Tyron Woodley. That's again, I mean, he's a former world champion, but it's like another guy that I don't consider these guys boxers, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like this is the difference. One of the Paul brothers fighting against Tyron Woodley or fighting against Ben Askren is kind of similar to, a YouTuber who is a pretty good, man, let me see. He's pretty good at ping pong, right? And he's going against somebody who is a decent tennis player in a game of ping pong.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of the same thing. But it would be completely different than somebody trying to take on Pete Sampras at tennis. Like, I was a YouTuber and I played tennis in high school, and now I'm playing against Pete Sampras in a tennis match. Or I'm a pretty good surfboarder, and now I'm going against Kelly Slater. That is the difference. That's the difference. It's I don't know. It's just not the same thing. You're talking about a guy who's they're both going into a sport that they didn't specialize in. Logan Paul didn't fight anybody in the UFC. He didn't fight anybody in a cage with 4-ounce gloves where you could do takedowns.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
And it wasn't on their turf. It was kind of on his turf.
Well, yeah, and I wish that they would do dual matches, right? Like, hey, look, I'll box you, but you need to do an MMA. That should really literally be the thing, because the one thing I think that annoys everybody is that when this gets done, like you've got a bunch of people that only watch YouTube, like my son, and said, like, see, I told you, and they think they know something about the sport, right? All of a sudden now they're like, well, I told you like this, and that's not like they think they know something about fighting. And Eddie Alvarez, I think at least he has the meme that says, hey, like, if it was an NBA game and I want to see if Michael Jordan and LeBron James want to play each other, they play one-on-one to see who the best is. They don't have a 3-point contest or a slam dunk contest. If you want to see who the best basketball player is, you play one-on-one. If I want to see who the best fighter is, you have a fight, which is MMA. You have a fight. You don't say, let's box, let's kickbox, let's grapple. Now the winner, that's the best fighter, because you're picking a guy that, it'd be like us going against, like James Toney, for example, that went against Randy Couture, right? I didn't trash boxing when it's over. I just said the guy that boxed went into MMA and doesn't know MMA. Of course he's going to lose. Like, he had a puncher's chance, he lost, right? Like, that's more realistic. And it was not fun. That's why that never happened again. It took a minute. You just took him down and submit him, and there was no fight back. It was not entertaining, right? That's why nobody wanted to see it again, because it was like, that's what's going to happen. You don't know how to stop a takedown. You know how to stop a choke. You're going to get taken down and choked. Right?
And I think that's the big difference too, is that when the James Toney fight happened, that it didn't soil boxing.
Let me say this one time real quick. This has nothing to do. Griffin Key, I see you're writing some good stuff on here. I cannot see. So like I would respond directly to you. I can only see a couple words. I was just telling Garry earlier, just so you know, Garry, I'm getting some comments on Instagram, which I do like. But I was telling Garry earlier, I have to where I can't see my right eye. I have to screenshot it and blow it up, and I can't do that right now because we're filming. So I'm sure, especially when they're longer, I can't read, but I see you said great analogy. And then literally, and it starts getting all blurry. So if you want to write some other way, I can't address what you're saying because I can't see. So I just want
I can't read, but I see you said great analogy. I'm going to try and bring it up here so I can see it.
Oh, are you? Okay, perfect. Because he's wrote some good stuff, and I don't want to ignore I see on there. So let's see. But while you're doing that too, let's talk about this real quick, and then we'll get to what he said. And I didn't get to see it, unfortunately, but what do you think about Anderson Silva beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.? I was.
Did you watch the fight?
No, I heard he dominated. I read about it, and I heard
it was amazing. It was amazing.
Really? Tell me about it, because I've literally not seen a highlight or anything.
So, man, did it go 6 rounds? I think it was a 6-round fight. I want to say it was 6 rounds. It was either 6 or 8. I can't remember exactly. And I only seen. Like, I watched the YouTube version of it, so it was like chopped up or whatever, and I didn't get to see it live. But he was classic. I mean, it was classic Spider Silva. At one point, he was up against the ropes. I think it was like the 3rd round, and Junior hit him with maybe a decent shot, but it wasn't anything that landed clean. And he was in the corner. He's like, come on. And he slipped. Really? And he was rolling. Head movement, just like old times. And then after that, he was able to turn the tide, had Junior up against the ropes, was like picking his shots hands down. And it was one of those things where it was like, because we talked about it sullying like all the MMA guys going to boxing. And I really feel like, Ben Askren going to boxing, getting knocked out in the 1st round, that puts a bad light on MMA, where I don't think that happened with James Toney. Like, nobody who was a MMA fan was like, boxing sucks, this is stupid. But when guys like Ben Askren or Conor McGregor go and fight good guys or decent guys or the best guys in boxing and get beat, everybody's like, see, we told you MMA is garbage. Not the sweet science, and it sullies MMA, which hurts me because I love MMA. Yeah, and it's just 2 different things. It was nice to see someone who had such, and we've all known that Anderson Silva had great striking and that his kickboxing was really good. His Muay Thai is beautiful, and it was nice to see that he was able to use that in a boxing match and dominate the way he did. As far as the fight goes, Julio Cesar Jr., there was a lot of missed punches and slipped punches and never landed really clean. Anderson, like I said, he looked it was vintage Anderson Silva.
Let's not forget, he's 46, correct? He's old. Let's not forget that. Like, this is not, this is like, this is like amazing. Nobody expected Anderson. Like, look, Julio Cesar Chavez is a former world champion in boxing, right? Look, again, he's not his heyday either, but I would say Anderson's way farther removed. He hasn't won a fight in the UFC since 2012, if I'm not mistaken, which is
Something like
embarrassing.
that, yeah.
Yes, that's embarrassing, right? So he's went, and if I'm not mistaken, they might have kicked him out of the UFC. It's just got to a point where it's like, come on now, we've gave you a shot. So that,
Well,
first of all,
he had that passing the torch fight with Israel Adesanya because everybody
yes,
said that Izzy was the new Anderson Silva, and so he kind of had that passing of the torch. And then I think he had a couple fights after that. And they were like, "All right, old man, go off into the pasture."
yeah. So, well, and obviously, again, I didn't see the fight, but I was shocked. And in the reviews I saw, because a lot of times too, those same reporters are not the nicest to the MMA thing, and I think it has something to do with the boxing thing in general. I do know that when sometimes we would have mixed shows when I had fighters that were like half boxing, half MMA. I'm telling you, man, that's a different thing. Those boxing people are a little different. And again, I'm from boxing. I boxed Golden Gloves and around it, but there's a different mentality. Those guys, I don't know why. But listen, I don't think anybody thought. Now, amazing. Let's call it what it is. Amazing. I can't comment too much because I just read what I read. But how did his dad do? How did Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. do? He thought he was fighting like Hector Camacho Jr.? Am I right or wrong? I thought that was the main event.
So like I said, I only watched the chopped up, edited version, so it didn't get taken down off of YouTube, and I didn't get to see that fight. So I didn't even know that the Anderson Silva fight happened until afterwards, and it showed up in my something showed up in my Instagram feed or something like that, and I went back and watched it.
They did a terrible
so
job.
I haven't watched that.
They did a terrible job marketing because that was finally, it sounds like a fight that was competitive, right? Typically, we're tuning in to watch Logan Paul and Mayweather or whoever it is, and it's not competitive, right? It's just stupid. And that's what sucks is that was a real event that probably would have been a good competitive event, and it just wasn't marketed correctly, in my opinion, right? Maybe it was, and I didn't see it, and maybe a ton of people watched it. I don't know. But the fact that it's over and I still could go to somebody and say, did you know Anderson Silva fought? They'd be like, no, I had no idea. That's not good. Right? I don't know. I don't want it to happen. But I will tell you this, though. Out of all those 3 fights, and I don't know how everybody else is, I am so thankful it wasn't a Triller card because I do feel like that is the worst production of any fight I've ever saw in the history of life. If you like that, wonderful for you, but I didn't tune in to watch a shitty hip hop concert with people that I actually like. Ice Cube, and they're singing songs that are from my day, but I tuned in to watch a fight. I didn't tune in to watch a bunch of old guys sing their old songs, and then a Justin Bieber concert on top of that, where I'm a guy. I don't tune in to watch Justin Bieber. Like we said earlier, that if 90% of the market is men watching the fight, what makes you think we want to watch Justin Bieber? I actually like Justin Bieber. My wife does too, but I don't want to watch this when I'm ready to watch a fight. I don't want to get stuck watching a half hour of Justin Bieber songs before I watch it. By that, I have the funniest picture, like right before that, because my family tried to stay up. My wife went to Justin Bieber concert. She loves him. She wanted to wait up and watch the concert, see him. She didn't care about the fight. They were all passed out before the fight came on. So I took a picture of my bed. Everybody's passed out. They didn't even make it to the final thing. And here I am all by myself watching this crappy Justin Bieber concert. And I thought I was watching Triller, and I'm hearing these stupid announcers saying, "Oh, I'm so excited I could come," and stupid shit like that. And I'm like, what am I watching? I hope this never ever comes on again, but unfortunately it's going to. But I also think, I don't know, maybe it's not, because I think I heard Jake Paul signed with Showtime or something, so maybe he won't be on there. That was the worst part of the thing. Like, I couldn't even enjoy that fight because he's just by the time I got there, I was done. I was like, this has been so long. And unfortunately, I think most people were the same. I saw Tom DeBlas say, like, I didn't tune in for a shitty hip hop concert. I thought I was watching a fight. And I was like, yes, exactly. That's what I thought,
Well, and that kind of brings us back to like me growing up on Tuesday night fights, Friday night fights, and watching that stuff with my dad. When I'm 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, does my dad really want me to sit down to ladies in thongs shaking their asses?
Yes. Well, that
like I would have it not, and I'm not the most strict like Puritan dad. Like my kids hear me cuss, and they know that I'm not. They watch me. I'll have a drink in front of them, and I don't have any problem with that. But
my kid,
there's a line. There's a line that the cross, and I can't watch that with my kids.
Well, that, and just, you know, my kids, they knew from the get go, like my 8-year-old, he was watching, I was happy to watch a fight with him finally. Right. Cause he's getting to that age and I was like, yeah, well, like pass on. Just like we said, we watched fights with our dad, and he looked at me and said, should I be watching this? Like, and he knew, right. It's like when the first 3 girls of who I didn't even know who they were. I knew the songs, which were terribly lip synced, but it was like, yeah, they were basically scissoring and doing other stuff, all things I'm fine with. But when you're watching it with your 8-year-old and 5-year-old, and like, again, I'm a different kind of parent. I can let them watch it. It is what it is. But when they're even new, like, hey man, like, I don't feel comfortable. They literally said that. I'm not even joking. They said, I don't feel comfortable watching this. And I was like, you're fine. They're not doing, you know, they got clothes on, and they're like, I feel like I should ask mom because I don't trust you. Like you let me do it. You know? It's kind of the same thing. It's like they know when it's like they want to eat Doritos or M&Ms, come ask me. Don't ask their mom. That's that same thing. Like, I feel uncomfortable. Like I should ask. And I'm like, and it was funny because she was taking a shower or something. She came in and was like, what the hell is this? And I was like, that's exactly what they said. And anyway, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I personally don't see that event lasting because of that. I think I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to be different. And look, sometimes you can't recreate the wheel. And that's kind of what they were trying to do, right? There's a reason that boxing is what it is. And I heard I was listening to an older Joe Rogan podcast today because I've been driving a lot the last few days, but they said the same. They're talking about the Logan Paul fight, and they just said, like, even that fight, they weren't happy with the announcers, and they did a lot better, but they were just like, they didn't have any real announcers. So nobody was technically breaking it down, meaning that things that I noticed and they brought up was that, you know, Floyd Mayweather put his hands up and charged into Logan Paul, which means he was going to get hit. But what he was trying to do is wear him down. Right. So he kept the pressure on him and let Logan Paul spaz out on him because he knew that the power was going to go away and anything he had to worry about was going to go away. He's probably going to tire him out, much like he did Conor McGregor. The difference was it was only eight rounds or whatever it was. It wasn't as long, and Logan Paul had a bigger gas tank than McGregor. But and also the reason is because like he was just so much bigger, 35 pounds bigger than him. It was just couldn't wear him out as much. But that all being said, if I was going to judge that fight, which wasn't a real fight, you know what I mean? Like you had a guy that was just, you know, meaning Mayweather, that maybe probably didn't train. It was taking his payday like as he should. It was entertaining. I was entertained. I thought he did what he did. I was entertained with the McGregor fight. Like, you know what I mean? I knew that Mayweather was carrying him in that fight, but I thought Mayweather did better than I thought. Same thing with Logan Paul. I thought he did better than I thought, which is a credit to Mayweather. He's letting those guys do what they can. But again, you have a guy that's not a power puncher, right? So he's not going to knock you out, like we said, like a Mike Tyson. He did what he did. I was entertained. You know, man, it's not the greatest thing in the world. But I also will tell you this: I didn't tune in. If Mayweather is fighting somebody, I'm not a fan of his boxing style. Doesn't mean I don't think he's awesome. But like, I would rather watch Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti any day of the week and watch two guys beat the shit out of each other and brawl, which is not real boxing, right? It is because they were technical and they had those body shots. It was very beautiful. But like a guy like Mayweather would tool those guys, right? He would never get hit and just smash those guys. And those guys weren't contenders. But I would rather watch a fight like that personally. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate those guys that fight. It just means like if I'm going to spend my hard-earned money, I would rather watch two guys stand toe to toe as much as possible, like a Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonner, right? Like that fight was amazing, right? Is that a great fight for their career longevity? No. Is that a great fight? Is that how you should fight? You should be more like an Anderson Silva, not get hit and knock Forrest Griffin out, in the first round. But if I'm going to spend money, I want to see something crazy, right? But again, all being said, like you said, maybe there's a time and place that celebrity boxing, which is trying to make a comeback, right? I guess it was on the other night. It's weird. What one was on the other night? Because there was one on. Like the guy brought it back because and it was something weird.
It's hard to tell. There's so many. There's so many events.
Well, it was Lamar Odom versus somebody was the main event. Lamar Odom versus like somebody. Again, this is the pop. Like I don't know if it's because of the pandemic, but this is what's popular now. It's We'll see. And maybe it won't be once we see the pay-per-view numbers. It may be a fact of nobody having anything to do, so they're watching more TV. And then once that it all equalizes out, this will disappear again. It won't. I don't really.
And that could be it too, because like not having it. Hey, me and my wife finally went to the movie theater after I don't know how long. But we went to the movies. We went seen the Hitman's bodyguard's wife, or the Hitman's wife's bodyguard, or whatever it was. The Samuel Jackson, Ryan Reynolds movie with Selma Hayek. And like going to the movies, people are finally getting out again. And we've kind of been trapped at home. And I do think that a lot of these, not that, Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather happened before all of COVID, but I think some of that stuff may have been accentuated by it. It may have been.
That definitely got the ball rolling, I think.
And now I think we're going to have people, I already see it. People are trickling back out in regular life and doing things outside again. So I think we'll see less and less of this. Hey, I'm stuck at home and I have to watch stuff on the internet, and more going out and doing things.
Which is nice. And for people that don't know, I mean, obviously you're in Ohio, and what's odd is I think you guys lessened up stuff, faster than West Virginia, which is shocking, right? Like, because usually West Virginia, we're, typically a state that doesn't seem like it cares about much, but June 20th was our day that they got rid of masks and everything else. But I'll be like, as far as that goes too, like a month before they said, hey, we're gonna, on June 20th, nobody has to wear a mask. Well, the day that they said that, everybody quit wearing masks and doing their thing anyway, which is just nice. It is nice that we survived the pandemic. Everybody did. It's hard to believe that was essentially March of 2020, right? And here we are in 2021, past March, over a year for something that everybody thought would be 2 weeks, 2-week lockdown, right? I know that's the running joke, but it's crazy because we made it through. And look, it is what it is. I'm over it. I don't even think of it as a negative thing anymore. It was a weird time we lived in, a weird time our kids lived in. We got through it. Some of us became better people. Some of us had a terrible time. Some of our friends and loved ones died, and those things can't be overshadowed. But it's nice that in general it's heading the right way, where we're watching NBA games and fights. And that's another point I want to make. Do you not think, because they were in Florida for the Logan Paul Mayweather fight, there was nobody in that crowd, especially for the prelims. There was 0 people that watched the prelims, which is not that uncommon. But I will say even the main event, that place was empty. And it was Florida, who doesn't care about anything. And they've been wide open for months and months. So you can't say it's because they're afraid of the thing. So maybe that's a sign that it didn't do as well as what people thought. I don't know. I wish I knew their pay-per-view numbers. I'm sure they're out there. But anyway, it was good to talk about. Let's finish up with, have we lost? So the WVGO is coming up this weekend, which is the gi and no gi submission only tournament for, obviously people don't know, but I assume most people know. Did we lose all of our super fights? Are we back on? What's going on with here?
Yeah. So everything was gone. We lost all of we had 2 matches, feature matches that were set up and they fell through. But we were able to, the last 10 hours has been, actually now I'll say the last 20 hours have been like, I've gotten my messenger inbox flooded, and a lot of people trying to get fights. People who have been asking for a while finally was able to get some stuff, and I got it all wrote down here. Originally, we had Zach Humbertson, and he was supposed to have a match, and his opponent dropped out. But we've got from Marietta, one of the SAS guys, Levi, and I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but I believe it's Plaugher, Plaugher. But him and Humbertson are going together, and that is going to be a no-gi match, I believe. I'll have to run back through all my stuff. But those guys are going together. George had some medical stuff going on, and so George Euler is out of his match with Zach Wild, and filling in for him. All of these guys that are filling in, they're filling in on short notice. So Thank you guys, and I can't tell you how thankful I am that you guys are stepping up and doing this on short notice. But Zach Wild is going against Matt Crabtree. And he's a Dustin Ware guy up in Columbus, I believe, SAS guy. And then we've got Andrew Sabatino, who's a buddy of mine. He's up in the Columbus area, and he's going against Chris McKinney, who is, I believe, in Pittsburgh. So we should have some good feature matches. Everybody that is in a feature match, as I lose my earpiece, everybody that's in a feature match is a brown belt. So high quality stuff going on, and it should be pretty fun to watch. It's still not too late to register. If you can go, I'll try and post it again. I know I posted it on Facebook and on the Bobcat MMA page. I'll also post it on the Rest Round page, that the link to register. And I'm pretty sure we can still register the day of too, right, Butch?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing. Now, typically the kids, we don't let you do that. And the reason is the kids are hardest to match up, because you could be a 10-year-old that's 60 pounds and then a 10-year-old that's 200 pounds. You know what I mean? They're just all over the place. I like to match up the kids ahead of time and contact the coaches if we have something like that arise. But with adults, it's pretty clear cut and dry, your age, weight, and belt rank, right? So anyway, we'll have the kids done. But with adults, here's the thing, man. I've always ran these tournaments, and Garry is the same. We've been here. This is competitor based. The reason that I started these tournaments has zero to do with me making money or starting an organization so that I can, do something money related. Obviously that you need some money to keep doing tournaments, but it has zero to do with the thing. This is something that for a while in West Virginia, around probably 2005, jiu-jitsu was illegal, oddly enough. And so part of the reason for me making jiu-jitsu legal was to have an option for people to compete and do something in West Virginia. And again, now we're not in West Virginia, but that's what this all started for, was to give jiu-jitsu competitors a place to display their skills, especially in this region, which at the time, which was West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, all that. There wasn't a lot of tournaments there. Now Ohio's exploded. Obviously there's like a grappling industry, or Naga, Grappler's Quest, and Fuji, and something like every freaking weekend, right? Ohio exploded, but there was nothing like that before. Like you had the Arnolds and you had a couple other things, right? Now it's something different, but still, it still remains. No matter how many tournaments you have, here's the difference is I can sign up for one of those big name tournaments. Everybody knows you pay over $100, you compete once, you go home. That's it, right? You may lose, you lose your money. Hey, you may sign up and there's nobody in your division and they don't give you a refund, you go home. This is a cheap tournament, meaning it's, 65, especially if you pre-register. And even I just kept it low on the day of, it's only 75. But the point is we try to do double elimination. So you're going to be in a loser bracket. You get compete as many times. You can do gi and no gi for the exact same price. You can also be in the absolute divisions. And then on top of that, this is competitor friendly. So if you came up to us and you're like, hey man, I think that ref did a bad job, he screwed up. Most of the time I don't go back and talk to the competitor and the other guy and say, hey, do you care to just run this match again? And we'll see what happens. And that doesn't mean that if you won first place and the other guys thought he got screwed, that I'm going to take away your first place. But maybe I'll keep you at first place and give the other guy a shot to share first place. And right, it'll somewhat correct if there was an issue and everybody agrees. But the point is, I'm giving everybody an opportunity to compete as much as possible at a cheap price in front of everybody and do as much as we can. Everything's not perfect, but the point is to make it as perfect as I can for you. And we address every issue, every comment, and do everything we can for the competitors. So in my opinion, it's a great tournament. The level is of the exact same level of all these other tournaments that have a big name, is for a cheaper price. But the difference is it's more competitor friendly and we actually care about these people. And half the time, especially when I'm there, I'm joking around with people and having a fun time and getting to know everybody. And that's how Garry and I got to know each other the same way. That's what I want. I want a community of people that are here to compete and show off their skills. And a lot of times, the coolest thing about running these tournaments, I get to see all these people compete and I get to see what the new thing is. And I get to go home and share it with my people and say, hey man, everybody's in there doing rubber guard. I was at tournament in Ohio, Dustin Ware's tournament a long time ago. And that's what was going on, was rubber guard. It was just fun to watch. And then all of a sudden everybody's doing leg drags, another tournament. Everybody's doing this, everybody's doing that. And that's what we got coming up. So it's this weekend. It's this Saturday. I'm excited. Look, it's a new venue. And a lot of times when you go to a new venue, it's not going to be as big as the other thing. So most likely this is going to be a probably smaller tournament, because you got to build it up and you got to get the people to come and the marketing, get that out there. And there's a lot of other tournaments going on that people can choose to do and probably have chose to do. But the point is, even if it's small, like you can come to me and Garry and everybody else and ask, can I roll with this guy? Can I do that? And we're going to absolutely say yes if everybody agrees. That's the point. I'm not trying to get in there and steal your money and go home. I'm trying to get in there and give you every opportunity to be the best person you can be and showcase your skill. And then Garry, I don't know if we're going to do it this time, but he always does a good job, especially the feature matches, which is the key, where they have a good announcing team. They live stream them. Again, are you going to do that this time, I guess, Garry, or maybe?
That is the hope. That is the hope, that I'll be able to live stream everything and it'll be on the Bobcat MMA page. We'll put it up there and everybody can watch the matches. First of all, we get, these are high level brown belt guys. Most of these guys are competitors on the regular. And they don't shy away from competition. And I love that about these guys. Secondly, this is going to be submission only. So there is no point. Everybody's going to be going for the kill. There's no purpose into weight. Right. So like getting the kill it was one of the things that we talked about with Dean Lister and everybody likes the knockout. Right. Well, this is the knockout. You go out, get the kill and get to see whose jiu-jitsu really is the best and what really matters when it comes to jiu-jitsu, which is the submission. And I like that about this format and always have. I've seen it a lot of times, no points, no excuses. It kind of holds true. You can't say, oh, well, if it wasn't for the fact that they gave him an advantage. Well, there are no advantages. Go get them. Like, it's your opportunity to go murder another guy. Go murder the other guy. That's the way I've always looked at submission only matches. I love that about it.
Well, yeah, and I don't argue. John Dunner had a great podcast, and he says this is the way it's going, right? That's how he trains his guys. That's why Gordon Ryan can be up 15-0. He's still going to go for the submission, right? And that's the thing is, and we talked about this a little bit before the podcast came on, but ironically, these are the ones that don't do as well as though. It's funny because everybody complains about points and IBJJF and advantages, and then you say, okay, well, here's a submission only. And then almost always the numbers are down smaller on these than the other, which is, it is what it is. Like, and I'm not knocking it because I get it. Like, I understand the different things and all of them are sports, right? I could be up 2-0 and stall out and win 2-0. Right. And that's a way to win that rule set. Not necessarily most exciting thing. Right. But it is a win. And obviously my gym's done that before. We all have done it. So I'm not knocking it. But it is something different about, like, when I watch boxing, since we talked a lot about boxing today, I'm tuning in to watch Mike Tyson knock somebody out. I'm not tuning into, and again, so I said, that's why I'm not a big Mayweather fan, even though I do admit he's the best. I'm not tuning in to watch somebody go the distance, and not get hit or not engage. And that's unfortunately what happens a lot in a rule point mindset. So I am tuning in, though, to watch two guys that have every opportunity to submit each other and go for the submission, go for the kill, as you put it. And it's exciting, right? We're going to see two guys that have nothing to lose, and they're going to go balls to the wall right off the bat, most likely, because they have no reason to kind of hold back. And that's when we're going to see sometimes the funnest jiu-jitsu. And like you said, you've done a great job of putting together high-level people, high level in the area. And of course, if we're streaming this, it all works out and we've got these people featured. That's why, because again, the reason of this tournament is to feature all these guys that don't get featured on EBI or Fight to Win, or, maybe they do, but not as much. And now maybe at this tournament, we have some other announcers, and you got another opportunity to have your friends and family watch you. And I think that's exciting. So hopefully it all works out. Again, it's this Saturday. We'll have the doors open at 8 a.m. if you want to come and weigh in early and do all that stuff. But, we'll have the adults will start at 12 roughly. I'll have a schedule posted here soon, but should be a quick, fast tournament that'll be good in Nelsonville, Ohio. That's not had this before. Yeah, and I look forward to it. Hopefully, everybody else does too. You know, it's going to be a fun night. So,
Absolutely. And again, thank you to guys. All the competitors always thank you guys for coming out and supporting jiu-jitsu. Anybody that's going to come and friends or family compete, like, thank you for supporting your friends and family in jiu-jitsu. Listen, it's my favorite thing outside of my family, that jiu-jitsu. And I think Butch, I would hope that you would know it by now, that this is like, everything that I do is just like, besides supporting my family, is to support my jiu-jitsu habit.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are like that. And so I'm just thankful for anyone who gives even a second to listen to me talk about jiu-jitsu, or my family who put up with me going to tournaments, or getting extra training in, or training my guys, or coaching, or all this. Like, I value that time that I have in jiu-jitsu above just about everything else in my life. And so, that I would like to see jiu-jitsu grow in Athens County. It's part of the reason, that we're lucky enough to have you bring it to Nelsonville. Hopefully we get a good turnout. I would love if, hey, we've got Ohio University, there's a convo there. There's no reason we couldn't have some big jiu-jitsu competition there. It's just, we have to drum up support, and we have to make it noticeable in the area. So the more people we get to come out, the bigger it gets in our area. The more interest we can have from these bigger places. That way we kind of talked about it before, but right now, if you're in Athens, you got to travel an hour and a half, at minimum, to compete, and it would be nice if we had stuff in our backyard. It's not unlike when you were fighting to get MMA legalized in West Virginia, because all the fighters were having to go out of the state to get fights, and nobody had home field advantage. It's no different with us in Southeast Ohio as far as like jiu-jitsu. It would be nice to not have to travel to Cincinnati or to Cleveland. It would be nice if it was in our backyard. And so if we can garner enough interest to say, hey, you can make a dime here, promoters will bring it here. And, I would like that to happen too.
Yeah, no, that's the future. And that, for people who don't know, I mean, that's Garry and I's way of giving back to a sport and to something that's given so much to us, right? Like you said, jiu-jitsu is your favorite thing in the world outside your family. And so what's a way for you to give back to jiu-jitsu? And this is the way, right? Is to say, well, hey, I can bring it to my community and the people around. And the same for me. That's the way I give. In 2002, when I started these tournaments, is the same. Like, what can I do to give back to an industry or a sport or a martial art that's given so much to me? And this is not this is the only thing we can come up with, which is good, right? We're trying to spread the love, but we're still looking for those ways to give back, because we're lucky and we're thankful. And here's the thing, like this one, we don't know how big it'll be. It may be small, but things take time to grow. And if it's there, we're going to put the effort in to grow it, right? This will be the first time. And then maybe next time be bigger, and then next time bigger than that. And then maybe that's how all things start, right? You got to plant the seed and then watch it grow. And that's where we're at right now. So look, man, I'm excited no matter what happens. I know it's going to be fun, and it's a good start. Right. And the other thing is, man, like, hell, man, it's been a long time. I do apologize. On my side, to finish off, Garry and I have been gone for 2 weeks, man. It's my fault, because I can't see. So finally I can see. So I'm glad that we're back, some degree. It's been good. I mean, hell, man, it's been a couple hours of us catching up on stuff, all important things, and then also talking about a couple of things that we got planned up that sound important. And maybe we'll get Rumble Johnson back down here. Maybe we'll get Miesha Tate. Maybe we won't, but we'll get some. We're going to try. That's the other thing. I'm always trying to have these things and give opportunities to myself as well as everybody else, man. And same with Garry. We're here to give back as much as we can to something that's given so much to us. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap it up. We've got beautiful things coming up, and I'm excited for what's going on, man.
All right. Well, you and your empty house, I'm assuming you're empty. So be careful. Don't drink too much tonight.
I've drank enough. I need to go to sleep and sleep this off. I need to probably drink a glass of water and rehydrate. But yeah, I got to get to bed. I got work in the morning.
All right. Well, same here, man. And it's, I appreciate everything. We'll get this uploaded, and I appreciate everybody. Hopefully we'll see you this weekend.
All right. Much love, everybody. Take it easy.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.